Okay, guys, it's Coop CNT Design. I'm recording this. I'm trying to do this on Zoom because it's my best option at this moment. And what I want to do is go through a couple of videos, and I think I can do it this way. Okay, let's see if we can do this. I want to go over a couple of videos. The subject I want to touch on right now, and this starts off with owning kids or owning guns, owning guns and having kids in the house at the same time. It's a subject that's very dear to me because I do own firearms and I do have children in the home. So this was a rabbit hole I got started in the other night. Let me go to the first one. This was Lauren Boebert and Thomas Massey had both posted videos or pictures, I'm sorry, of their family holding firearms. Nothing that any of us would really think twice about, but the left is losing their mind. Sorry, I'm losing one of my headphones. So the left is absolutely losing their mind over this. And of course, AOC, what does he call her? Ocasio Occasional Cortex has to open her big mouth on this. And then people have to jump on Boebert because she has said some things and disagreed with some prominent squad members, and they have to run into it's all about race. But the way this snakes through, the biggest thing was is that the kids were in the videos or in the pictures holding the guns. So let's get into this. Of course, this is CNN. Oh God, these people are so annoying. It's not even funny. But let's try this. Hold on. Let's let this run for a sec. Why am I not getting sound from this? Am I not going to get sound from this? We can do captioning on it. So this is a picture that was posted, and it's Lauren Boebert. She's got 4 boys. All of them are holding AR pattern rifles. Each one of them, looking at the picture, is holding the firearm in a safe direction. They don't have fingers on triggers. They're showing good discipline with the firearms. So this is something that I have 0 issues with. Thomas Massey's video or picture, keep saying I want to say video. Thomas Massey's video, goddamn, there I go again, son of a. His picture, if I can get this out of my face, was pretty much the same thing. Whole family holding many different guns. Although Thomas Massey, ooh, God, he had, I think, an M60 in the picture, who I'd dearly love to have. So let's see if we can go through this. These people start losing their brains about this immediately. And the condescending tone that this jackass uses is almost worse than old Karen over here in her freaking condescending tones. Oh, man, it just freaking hurts. Colleagues, this is where he gets into Thomas Massey. It had a picture, and everybody was losing their brain about that because, of course, it was just after the Michigan school shooting. And I'll say this many times, probably throughout the course of this, the Michigan school shooting was just like a lot of other school shootings. They're absolutely horrible. But the people who own firearms who did not commit that school shooting have no culpability or responsibility for that school shooting. It is that person who committed that act. It is completely their responsibility. Nobody else's. I just want to scream sometimes with this. I wish I could get this computer audio played because this next idiot that they bring up here, who is supposed to be their correspondent on this issue, oh man, he's another one. He immediately starts in with this. Well, she posted this, AOC said something, but this is really in his Islamophobic comments from Boebert is really what matters in this whole range of events here. Because Boebert has called out Ilhan Omar on some of her stuff, and it must be really nice to be a minority member and a Democrat because no matter what you say, you don't have to argue with anybody on facts. You can just merely say, well, they're attacking me because they're phobic about something. That's where they get into the back and forth tweets on this. Come on. This is what. Let me let this run. Let's see what I can get rid of. There we go. So this was Ocasio Occasional Cortex's response to Boebert's picture. Tell me again, you guys, if my screen shows up all the way, you guys will be able to see this. Tell me again where Christ said, use a commemoration of my birth to flex violent weapons for political gain. First of all, Christmas is the celebration of Jesus as a whole, not just his birth, because a lot of the things involved in the Christmas holiday, like the wise men coming and things like that, Jesus was a lot older when they got there. He wasn't in a manger. There was a very large lag time. The other thing is Jesus's family was in that area, away from their homeland, because they were running from a tyrannical state that wanted to kill all male children of that age. So yeah, that is very much political. It was then, it is now. Who's starting up on my phone? Oh, someone like something else, I think. So anyway, back to this. So yeah, you're talking about people who were on the run from a tyrannical state, who Ocasio Occasional Cortex is an absolute progressive statist, so she believes in the absolute power of the state. Knows nothing about Christianity, knows nothing about anyway. LOL, all the years Republicans spent on cultural hysteria of society erasing Christmas and its meaning, when they're doing doing that fine all on their own. What does them getting guns for Christmas have to do with erasing Christmas? Besides exactly nothing. And this was just the start of this. We're going to tie some of this up in a minute and go through some other things. And this is all the political back and forth BS. This guy started talking about, well, this kid holding this semi-automatic rifle when he's not tall enough to ride Space Mountain, as if there's a height requirement to be able to teach someone about firearms. I'm 5'7" on a good day. So yeah, I'm a little short dude. If there was a requirement, do you not think the government would just raise the requirement so that I have to be at least 6 foot tall to ride that ride? Oh man, the mind of the statist. What else is happening? I'm sorry, guys. My phone keeps going off. I'm trying to pay attention to some shit. And what this is where he says he's not tall enough to ride Space Mountain. These people cannot have an intellectually honest argument. They just can't. It is absolutely impossible for a statist progressive to have an intellectually honest argument. It's always going to be gaslight the hell out of everything. And he's talking about, bringing the conversation back to firearms and the culture war is exactly what Boebert wants, which it is, because those conversations need to be had. And then he accuses Boebert of identity politics, which the left invented identity politics. They're the ones who want us separated out into different groups and different colors and different religions and all that shit. Anytime a Democrat accuses you of something like, I don't know, racist, phobic over phobophobes and identity politics, anytime they accuse you of that, it's exactly what they're doing. Da-da-da. Let's see. Let me speed this up because I want to shoot down to these other videos real quick. And this jackass talking about, he was a pastor's son and spent many nights in church going over or watching the nativity scene, and guns involved in these pictures somehow makes people less Christian. These people, they change the facts to fit their narrative. Okay, even if you believe that Jesus was completely peaceful, although I still remember things of the man being pissed off and throwing money changers out of the temple, tipping over tables and beating them with whips. I'm pretty sure the dude got pissed. If you actually look at Jesus, you look at the arc, the story behind Jesus, there was a time where he was going to be the lamb, the sacrifice. And when he comes back, if you read the actual text, he's coming back to put the sword to people. He's not coming back kumbaya, peaceful, whatever. No, he is basically going to be the lion, a warlord when he comes back. And for every verse these jackasses can try to push out of context about peace in the Bible, I can go find plenty where it talks about basically selling your coat and buying a sword. The sword in that day was the AR or the AK of that day. It's no freaking wonder. Here we go with the Islamophobic crap again, and Republicans Islamophobic. Identity politics. God, man, they get their talking points for the day. And this chick opens up her mouth talking about the same thing. Thomas Massey, this is where she goes and basically goes ahead and stacks those bodies up so she can stand on them real tall with her false morality. They posted this, and the school shooting just happened, which is a horrible event. I can't say that enough. The little monster that did that, we know 100% he did it. The trial is just a formality, and dude ought to get the death penalty, period. He shouldn't have the right to draw breath. I can go, well, let's see. All right. Christmas, and says it's turning into some bastardized thing. Here's where she gets to the school shooting. How do these families in Michigan feel about this school shooting or these pictures that are being posted? One, they probably don't give a damn. They just lost their children. They have other issues on their mind besides someone posting a picture with guns. Two, I could understand their anger about someone posting pictures with firearms. It's an emotional event. But rationally, the people that are posting pictures holding firearms have zero to do with their children getting killed. That school is very much culpable for it. If you look at this case, they had his social media with him basically making threats. They knew the kid was unstable. They would have kicked the kid out of school if he didn't wear a COVID mask, but they know this kid's unstable. They know he's posted stuff on social media that's a threat, and they didn't kick him out of school and say, no, your child is not coming back to school until he gets evaluated by a psychologist. But somehow it's everybody else's fault who owns guns. And if I'm not mistaken, this kid did this with a handgun. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it wasn't an AR-15 because they're not drilling down on shooting with an AR-15 at this point. It's amazing how much you can tell about these stories by what they're not saying. All right. She goes through the traumatized students. Yes, the students are traumatized, man. Watching your friends, watching your classmates get killed, and then they bring it back to a culture war. All right. So here's the deal on the culture war stuff. We let the left control the language. We let the left control the narrative. Gun control becomes common sense gun safety. Global warming becomes climate change, so that if the climate gets colder, they can say, well, it's climate change. They move those goalposts around so bad they ought to throw their freaking backs out. When it comes to firearms in the culture, which is part of this culture war, decades ago, kids were educated on firearms. They were very common in homes. I mean, which is a shame. They're more common in homes now than they were in some cases back then. But kids had a sense of right and wrong. They had a sense of respect for life. They had a sense that when you do something bad, there are consequences. And for the last 40 years, actually over that, way before that, more than 40 years, the left in this country has pushed the idea that you are not responsible for your own actions. Someone else is responsible. Some other object's responsible. So when we as firearms owners, as firearms advocates, have stuff like this is that 43 that I built. It's clear all the way through. I can see the chamber. I can see light coming through the barrel. So that we have stuff like this, and we say that children ought to be aware of these. Children ought to be informed about these. If you have firearms at home, children ought to be trained with these so that they respect these. That is part of the culture war. And that's not a bad thing. That's why they have to attack the object being used, and they can't go into the motivations of the person and really drill down into that person's personal actions. So let's screw the rest of this video. There were a couple others. Now this video, this is an older video. And if you can look it up just by the tag here. I'll have to see how to post links and everything. Well, this is about young children learning firearms. And this was a Nightline thing where they just, man, it's just dripping with condescension that these parents would dare teach their children or have their children taught about firearms. Let's look at this. Let me turn on the closed captions so I can kind of keep up. I thought audio would play, but it doesn't look like it is. And what he says here at first is that, most parents want to keep guns out of their children's hands or keep their children away from guns. Now there's a large movement to put guns in their children's hands. Well, it's a movement to train our children on firearms, is all it is. So they get into this group, and this lady says here in a minute, well, these children, some of them are still losing their adult teeth or whatever she says. Well, yeah, it's really never too early to start teaching your children about firearms, even if you don't own firearms. If your children are around or could possibly be around other families that own firearms, you need to teach your children about firearms. I don't care whether you use something like this, which is just a Nerf gun. You can teach your children about proper firearms handling and teach them what to do if they ever run into a firearm. They ever find one somewhere, at a friend's house or anything else. You can do that. If you don't like actual guns and you want something that looks more like a gun, go get a freaking BB gun. Some of them look pretty much exactly like actual firearms. You can use those to teach your children. We want to educate them on everything else. God knows the left wants to educate them on transgender, what the ever, but they can't educate them on something that there are over, 400 million firearms in the United States right now? You can't spend the time to teach your children about something like that? These little girls killed me, man. They're rocking it. Some will say this, oh, how dare you get excited about it? I'm absolutely excited about stuff like this going on. And my daughter's 5. This year, she got her BB gun for Christmas. Now, above that BB gun, she's been exposed to every gun that I've built. She's been exposed to pretty much every gun in this house. She knows not to touch them. She knows there's not toys. When she was 4 years old, my 10.5-inch AR, I held the gun or helped her hold it, made sure it was completely safe for her, make sure there's no way she was going to drop it, had her pointed at a target that was in a safe direction and let her pull the trigger on it. It was later in the evening, and that 10.5-inch gun, even with that flash can on it, shoots a damn fireball. And it was a very violent reaction right in her hands, and it freaked her out a little bit. Now, she's fired other guns. She's been around plenty of other guns that are fired. At 5 years old, my daughter understands those are not toys. She knows not to touch them. There's another video. I'll have to see what I could possibly find it. I might do it on this video or might do it on another, where this doctor set up this room, and they went through a couple things, but they basically set up a situation where they put guns in kids' toy boxes, guns out on the playground, all kinds of stuff where children would absolutely run into these guns. But they never gave the children any sort of context about it. So if you throw a gun in a kid's toy box, it's in there with toys. Toys are their reference point for the decision on what that thing is. And if you don't spend enough time with your child teaching your child, then a pink-looking gun or a blue-looking gun could be referenced as a toy to them. When I've built guns, I've taught my daughter and showed my daughter, like on the AKs that I've built, bolt carriers, triggers, safeties, all that. Explain to her what a common, what a common metallic cartridge is and how that works, from the primer to the powder to the actual projectile, so that my daughter knows that if she sees anything with those components, that it is more than likely a real bullet and that she shouldn't touch it. She should come get me so that I can look at it and I can deal with it. And it wouldn't matter whether she ran into one outside. Matter of fact, we've been out shooting where a full cartridge was somehow dropped or left, and my daughter saw it, and she didn't pick it up like she would with an empty casing. She told me, "Hey, Daddy, there is a full bullet over here, or a bullet over here," in her terminology at 4 or 5 years old. You have to take the mystery out of guns if you want children to be safe with them. And you can do that at their level, no matter how young they are. My son is 2. My son just knows at this point that if he sees something that is shaped like, I don't know, this or one of the long guns, that he's just not to touch it. And people say, you can't teach him that. The hell I can't. It's no different than teaching him not to touch the stove. It's just something that you have to do on a constant basis. And then as they progress and they learn, you have to constantly keep up that conversation with them and walk them through it. Let's get back to this video. Texas Playdates requires serious firepower. They're talking about this thing. And I love how they call it. And the tone is just being so freaking condescending. These little pint-sized shooters. which they are pint-sized shooters, but I'm not saying with the tone they are. And if you look, these little girls are handling these firearms properly. I mean, their grips are good. Their sight alignment looks good. You don't see them waving them around like a toy. It's not like throwing a bunch of kids in that have never been around firearms and putting them in a position where they're going to come across one. A lot of shootings, and I'll go through this just because it's just that time. A lot of shootings with children happen, one, because they don't know anything about guns at all. Two, the guns are in the home and the guns are still a mystery to the children. They want to go in and play with them. They want to go in and handle them. Younger children, hell, like my son, and he's shown this with some different airsoft or Nerf guns like this, which has been pretty instructive to me. We had some that just shot a little foam ball. I mean, they were cool little things, but when he picked one up, he can't get a grip on it with his finger, but he could turn it and grip it with his thumbs, which shows you why a lot of children who get shot with guns are shot in the head or chest area, because when that young child picks that gun up, they're gripping it with their thumbs and pointing that gun at themselves. So your gun shouldn't be left in a place, and your toddler shouldn't be that unattended to where that they can get to that firearm. But even with a toddler, 2-year-old, they're mobile, they're getting into stuff. That child should be instructed that those are something, the firearms are something that they shouldn't touch. And I'm going to say something that's controversial, but I'll say this doctor did this in his experiments. I've taken, say, my AKs, I've dropped the bolt out of them, made it to where there's no possible way that gun could fire, and it just set up in a corner by the door or somewhere outside of the toy area, to where when my child came across that, I could watch their reaction to it. If they acted like they were going to run over and touch it, well, then that was a conversation. No, you can't play with that. Now, this is an inert gun. There's no way it can hurt someone. It's basically a freaking club. So don't freak out. It's not like I'm leaving a loaded freaking Glock 43 or 34 laying around, 43, with a chambered round, and tell them, hey, kids, go play with that. No, that's not what I'm saying. Get that out of your brain, you bunch of dumb shits, if you even thought that. I'm saying an inert firearm, something that it looks like a firearm, even if it was an airsoft gun, couldn't fire a bullet that was completely disabled. Those can be training tools for your children, educational tools, to where they understand after a while that that's not something they can play with. If you train them on that, if you were constantly, when you clean your gun, when you clean your carry, when you clean your rifles, when you just oil your rifles, if you have that out in front of them and they see that, and when they ask questions about it, you answer those questions to a level that they can understand. And it is always framed as you can't handle these without an adult. If you're ever around one of these when adult's not present, you don't touch this. This is not a bad thing, but it can be a dangerous thing. My daughter's 5. She, again, being around firearms, she's seen us shoot. She's seen what these rounds will do when you fire them at objects. We shot pumpkins one time, which she dearly loved. But it got that across to her that when you fire one of these guns and it hits a target, it is going to destroy whatever that target is. This isn't the Nerf gun that you can shoot and bang, have fun with, and nothing bad's going to happen. It's going to be a very violent, powerful reaction whenever one of these goes off. and my daughter loves being around shooting. My son, he's learning. He's 2. He's been around us shooting. He doesn't like wearing earmuffs. That's a fight with him sometimes. So that's part of his training is you've got to wear ear pro while we're shooting. Am I letting him run around, pull the trigger on shit? No, he's 2. When he gets a little older, will he be shooting things like 22s and 410s and BB guns starting out with? Absolutely. And he's going to be taught these firearms, these guns are not toys. You can use them safely, but there is a set of rules you have to follow. The first rule that they will ever learn is no matter what, whenever you pick one of these up, it is treated like it is loaded. Even after you drop the mag, say on a semi-auto, you drop the mag, rack the slide a few times, lock the slide back, look down, feel the barrel, feel the mag, make sure that there's nothing in that. Even though it's 100% cleared, it is still treated like it's loaded. That's the first rule that they will learn. These are not toys. No matter what they look like, no matter if they've got a cool paint job on them, even if they look like this, they need to know the difference in between how that feels or how it actually operates. Let's get back to this real quick. This is about promoting kids sports, and I think this is the video, and they drive me crazy on this, because what they're saying is that the gun industry is pushing this because the gun industry needs more end users for their products, which us as gun owners will have the guns. The kids, my guns will last until they are, till I'm gone and they're passed on to my kids. So it's not like, the guns are going to disappear. Yes, there's always going to be a progression in firearms, new technology, which that's slow with a lot of things. There's going to be new guns that come out. There's always going to be the hot thing that is going to be coming out that shooters are going to want. So yeah, these kids will grow up and hopefully they will be responsible firearms owners, and they will continue that. They'll go to shooting competitions. They'll go to training. They'll have whatever arms they see fit to defend themselves and their families, and yes, their property with. And she's talking about exactly what we should be talking about. This is the conversation we should be having with kids about firearms, teaching them respect for firearms, teaching them that firearms aren't toys, showing them how to properly handle firearms. If more kids ran through actual training courses on firearms, there would be less firearms deaths when it comes to children, and you wouldn't be stripping away anybody's rights. People will freak out. That little girl, she's too young to shoot that pistol. No, the hell she's not. When she's properly supervised in the handling of the firearm, she's definitely not too young. All right. And the first things, in any training course, first things they're going through with these kids, the 4 rules that all of us should really go through. We may state them different sometimes, but 4 very basic rules on firearms. And see, they're going through with blue guns right there. So for people who watch this and don't know, blue guns are an inert gun shaped like a particular firearm in some cases, where you can practice your firearms handling with an inert gun that's not going to be a danger to anybody. I mean, hell, the most you can do is pistol whip somebody with it, but and that probably kills more people than AR-15s every year. So learn how to load mags. I don't see anything wrong with it. And this is where they get into, they start putting in those little jabs in the story about all these young children who are injured by firearms and killed by firearms every year. What they don't tell you is a lot of, they pad these statistics so bad it's just not even funny. A lot of these so-called kids that are injured and killed by firearms every year are children that are involved in gangs, who are out gang banging, who are carrying guns, trying to shoot people. It's not a child who comes across a unsecured firearm. A lot of the times, yes, that does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but that's not the vast majority of the firearms deaths for children that they're trying to add in here. Matter of fact, a lot of children, and I have to look up the numbers. I think as far as accidental shootings where, say, a child finds an unsecured gun and shoots and kills themselves, I want to say, and I'll have to look up the statistics, but there are more children who drowned in homes, in tubs and buckets and toilets than there are injured by the firearms. So, I mean, I don't see anybody wanting to ban 5-gallon buckets. Matter of fact, if you look at a Home Depot bucket, it has a warning on the bucket about a child or a toddler tipping into the bucket and drowning. And she's talking about, they own guns. Her child has seen guns in the gun safe, and basically gets into the fact she wants her child to be educated about them. That's a good mom. That's a mom who wants to see her child live to a ripe old age. And some of the left are going to freak. Well, they're learning how to load guns. They're learning how to operate guns. Yes, they are. And they're learning how to do it properly. What's your point? The amount of kids that reach 16 or so and die in car accidents every year is insane. That's another statistic that I could look up real fast, add into this video. It's the reason we have a driving restriction where you get a learner's permit at 15, can't drive till you're 16. That restriction is there. But of course, driving itself is not a constitutionally protected right either. It's a privilege that can be taken away quite easily. In fact, your license can get suspended for something as simple as having a couple of parking tickets. Oh, she's going to rack it. That little girl right there, like some of the others, is freaking serious. She is better at handling firearms than a lot of adults. Matter of fact, I'd put her up against a bunch of cops that I've seen trying to handle firearms. And that looks like barrel diameter, probably 22, but hey, she's still kicking it, man. And she's serious. Of course, I think she was one. I have to try to find her. She actually became a professional shooter. And see what they're talking about here and what she was just hitting on. It's not like they're trying to teach these kids defensive shooting. What they are teaching them is proper handling, proper manipulation, sight alignment, how to actually fire the gun, hold the gun properly, keep it on target. A lot of just very basic stuff. A lot of very basic stuff that a lot of so-called gun owners are absolutely inept at. And then they go through her, and this freaks these people out. That she actually goes through guns that she uses both for sport, for hunting, for competition. Let me see what I can flip over to some more of this. This is where we get into some of the freaking they got a poison the well. Talking about kids younger, impulsive, you can't just teach that out of a kid. Yeah, yes, you can. Uh, you certainly can. It's the reason my kids aren't running around the house sticking forks in light sockets. The American Medical Association is so anti-gun, it's not even funny. So a lot of doctors that are involved in that are absolutely anti-gun themselves. Um, she's part of the American Academy of Pediatrics, so I mean they really, really get anti-gun on a lot of their stuff too. And if you don't believe, here's just one instance. If you don't believe you can train your children in impulse control, um, how do you teach your child to not just throw a fit? And some kids are actually, I mean, they're more prone to it than others. They're going to throw a fit really easy, but there's a way you handle that in a way that you teach them, all right, you can't be a little monster. Even when you're disappointed, you can't go run around setting the house on fire. Um, you have to be able to calm down, and you actually have to become a nice little human being again. Just something we're lacking a lot. And I have two very strong-willed children. And then she gets into independent control of that weapon. Well, these young children shouldn't have independent control of the weapon. It should always be supervised control. And then when they get older, yes, they can have independent control of the weapon. There are plenty of 10, 11, 12, and up year olds, and some younger than that, who on family land or on land where it's allowed, are handling firearms on their own out hunting, whether it's bird hunting or deer hunting or squirrel hunting. Here's your 22. Dad's going to go down this way. You can kind of walk around that way a little bit. They're going to be independent handling stuff. Or in a lot of cases, in younger times, it was here's your 22. Here's a box of ammunition. You guys can go down to the field or the creek or the woods, and you guys go shoot targets. Independently handling a firearm at very young ages, that's something that in the past has not been a controversial subject. But for people who are completely anti-gun, no matter what, it is absolutely controversial to them. All right. And again, she's throwing out some case numbers, which, and some of it's true, but they don't throw out all the other things that are very much comparable to that. This is about demonizing the object. All right. Now this is another one. I didn't realize they got into this with this video because I didn't watch the whole thing the other day. But this is another situation where they take a bunch of guns, inert guns, just and they place them in areas where the child is going to find those guns. And in some cases, these children think those are toys and they play with those guns. I'm not necessarily arguing with the complete thing, but that should be a teachable moment with the children. What they're doing here is demonizing the gun. Let me say that again. That should be a teachable moment for the children. That should be a sit down, okay, this is the gun. This is a real gun. Even though you found it in this area, this is a real gun. This is not a toy. and then educate your child about that. But instead, they just want to demonize the gun. They never go through those steps to educate the children. So let's see. So this is the Eddie Eagle thing, NRA. I'm not an NRA fan. I think they're completely inept when it comes to firearms. Now, see, let's back that up again real quick. So they go from Eddie Eagle. They place this gun in this kid's book bag, or in a book bag this kid has access to. So they're automatically putting that in conflict, which these things can happen. Kids have brought guns to school at very young ages. But again, they demonize the gun instead of bringing that to its next logical step, which would be to educate the child on that firearm and the dangers of that firearm. And at his age, that child should be learning gun safety, period. You should show them that, just bring it back, show them that video. Hey, you pointed this gun at your friend. Okay, you just broke one of the major rules of gun safety. You never point that gun at anything that you are not willing to destroy. Yes, young man, if that had been a live gun with live ammunition, you would have killed him. He would no longer exist. And children can understand that concept to a point. They can't understand the full meaning of it. But again, using my own kids as examples, we have chickens. We slaughter some of our chickens. So my daughter understands that chicken was alive at one point, and then it is no longer alive the next. She's been deer hunting with me. She's been right there when I've shot deer. So she's seen the gun, she's heard the shot, she's seen a live animal go from being on its feet and breathing to an animal laying on its side and having blood run out of it, the gory aspects of what it's like to actually take an animal. So she can understand those concepts on her level. And as she gets older, she will understand them on a deeper level. And you look, that child, it almost never fails. That child is going to look down the barrel of a handgun, just like that. Just like that. What that is in a lot of cases, I think, with children is they know enough, even watching TV about firearms, that's where something's going to happen. That's open, so something is going to come out of it. They don't understand that necessarily, unless you've taught them that is where a projectile is going to come out. It's going to be a violent reaction, and anything ahead of that projectile is going to get destroyed. And they play on this. They get into this pink cricket, which is a firearm that is obviously advertised for young female shooters. There's nothing bad about that. They're trying to demonize it. Yeah, kids are going to see this as a toy. No, if you train them, if you teach them, just like anything else, they will understand that that is a gun, that there are dangers associated with it, and that you have to handle it properly. I would almost recommend doing programs like this in schools where these children would be exposed like this to firearms in a very safe way. And I would use that, God, I get stuck with a freaking stupid ass, but use that as that teaching moment to show these children that those guns are not toys. And then let me flip back to that. They're going through their statistics. 43% of guns are not locked away properly. Well, you have to get into their definition of locked away properly. In a lot of cases, their definition of locked away properly is a gun is in a safe, and in some cases, that gun has to be completely stripped down or have cable locks and trigger locks on it to be properly locked. And then I think I've seen a little bit of this before. This lady that they're going through, again, this is the case of a young kid who was curious about a firearm. The firearm was at his parents' house. Him and his friend were there. And this is a little bit older kid, but obviously one who was not trained on firearm safety whatsoever. Um, Long story short, he got in there where his dad or his mom's gun was at. He dropped the mag. So something like that. He drops the mag, doesn't rack the slide to clear it, points it at his friend, pulls the trigger, and kills his friend. How many rules of gun safety do you break right there? What, 3? Probably more than that. Well, I don't think his friend was his target, but he didn't treat the gun as if it was always treated like it was loaded. He didn't point it in a safe direction. He had it pointed at his friend. He put his finger on the trigger and pulled the trigger. We could touch on Alec Baldwin for a second on that one, but hey. So let's see, because she goes through the shooting. And the officer in this interview, this kid does not realize, let me put it up here. This kid doesn't realize he's been arrested. He's in the interview room. He doesn't realize at the start of this that he killed his friend. He knows that he shot his friend. He doesn't realize that his friend actually died. And then the officer in the background, at the end of this, with very much a tone, says, well, we might, or something to the effect of, we'll go ahead and tell him that his friend is dead. Well, yeah, his friend's dead, you dumbass. And obviously he didn't mean to kill him. That young man, obviously his friend had a worse day. That young man's going through the worst day of his life and something he's going to have to live with for the rest of his life. And I think this kid ended up, since it was basically an ND, a negligent discharge, he could have been charged with a couple of things. I think reckless homicide, maybe something else. Anyway, yeah, I think he ends up with a year probation on this. And the rest of his life, he's going to need some serious counseling. But it all comes down to this kid, if there are guns in that home, no matter when you get those guns, if your kids are older when you get those guns, they need to be trained. If your kids are younger like mine are, they need to be trained from the time you get those guns all the way through. There shouldn't be a lapse in that training. I'm on my children constantly about everything else, whether it's picking up toys or responsibility or being nice and sharing, all the other stuff that you're trying to instill in this little person. If you own guns, or if your children could possibly be around guns, you need to start instilling that in your children at a very young age. They are never too young to start learning about this. If that was taught in schools more often, and if that was taught in homes more often, we could reduce the level of deaths from negligent discharges for young children to almost nothing. If these Democrats in Congress were worried about saving lives, yes, there would be a firearms training and safety program in every single school, and there would be multiple levels of it. In elementary school, at very young ages, kindergarten, pre-K, all the way up to high school, those programs would be in place. We would save more lives that way and not restrict the rights of others to own the arms that they see fit for themselves. And we wouldn't be pushing these idiotic, and we'll get to some of them later, safe storage laws to where the government is going to mandate what you're doing in your own home. Why in the world do I want the government to have more power on what I do in my own home? Man, it just drives me insane. I'm going to end this right here. I was going to go through one or two other things, but this one's getting, long, which a lot of my videos are going to be. But anyway, you guys be cool. Stay safe. We'll talk to you after a while. I think I am going to shoot another video tonight, so you'll probably see me again. Y'all take it easy. Be cool.